These are the faces of the victims of the so-called Snowtown murders. For every face, there are families that will never fully recover from what was done to their loved ones in one of Australia's most notorious serial killings.
They've suffered and continue to suffer unimaginable trauma. Many still suffer from nightmares, PTSD, lack of motivation. Many remain fearful.
Now, almost 25 years after his arrest, one of the perpetrators is set to be freed. Mark Haydon, whose wife Elizabeth was one of the victims, will complete his 25-year sentence in May, and legal experts say there is nothing in the law that prevents his release.
The court has imposed a sentence. Once that sentence is complete, then he would be released from custody.
While his fellow accused, Robert Wagner, John Bunting and James Vlasakis, were convicted of murder, Haydon, who is now 65, was only found to have assisted the offenders, not to have been actively involved in the killings. Sarah Quick is the Victims' Rights Commissioner of South Australia and has spoken to the families impacted by Haydon's offending and impending release.
It's a very universal view that they would prefer he was never to be released.
The horrific crimes were uncovered by detectives who found decomposing bodies in a bank in Snowtown, 150 kilometres north of Adelaide, in May 1999.
Because of the advanced state of decomposition, it will not be possible to accurately discern how many bodies are there until exhaustive forensic testing has been completed.
In total, 8 bodies were identified from the 6 barrels found in the bank. The remains of 3 more victims were discovered elsewhere. It was a killing spree that had lasted 7 years, led by the depraved John Bunting. Claiming to target pedophiles, Bunting focused on anyone who was different, encouraging Robert Wagner, James Vlasakis and Mark Haydon to help him commit and cover up the atrocious acts. Those killed were their relatives and acquaintances: Clinton Trezise, Ray Davies, Michael Gardner, Barry Lane, Thomas Trevelyan, Gavin Porter, Troy Yude, Fred Brooks, Gary O'Dwyer, Elizabeth Haydon and David Johnson disappeared between 1992 and 1999. The killers tortured their victims to get personal details and then claimed their welfare benefits. Michael O'Connell was the Victims' Rights Commissioner for more than a decade and has been in regular contact with family members.
The victims were human beings and their lives were stolen, and their loved ones now live with the loss for the rest of their lives. And that loss carries over generation after generation after generation.
Haydon's offending included storing and moving the bodies. He co-signed the lease for the Snowtown bank vault. He was also present when 21-year-old Troy Yude was murdered. Haydon went to trial charged with 2 counts of murder, but the jury couldn't reach a verdict. He was initially found to have been involved in assisting covering up 5 of the killings. He then pleaded guilty to 2 more counts of assisting offender. Haydon was given a non-parole period of 18 years. He's twice applied to be given his freedom, and it remains possible that he could still be paroled even before he's completed his jail time. And if he does finish that sentence, it remains an option for the government to apply for an extended supervision order,
which would impose conditions that would largely mirror parole, such as controlling where a person lives, where they can go, who they can and can't associate with, and can include electronic monitoring.
James Vlasakis, who gave evidence against the other men and pleaded guilty to 4 of the murders, will be eligible to apply for parole next year. For the families of the victims, just facing the thought of Haydon being granted freedom is difficult enough.
They very much feel that they've been given a life sentence, that their pain and their trauma doesn't subside. So it's really difficult to reconcile the fact that Haydon might have the opportunity to start a fresh life.
Both Bunting and Wagner have been told they will never be released on parole. James Wakelin, ABC News.